Hi, everyone. I'm Beth Weissenberger. I'm the co-founder of Handel Group, an executive life coaching company. And today on the show, we're going to talk about what you can do as a leader to deal with your dark side and what sucks about you. Stay tuned.
Congratulations! You are tuned into Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Show, the #1 podcast for Fortune 500 executives and those who are dedicated to creating a quantum leap in leadership. Your host, Dov Baron. He's an executive mentor to leaders like you, a contributing writer for Entrepreneur Magazine, CEO World, and he's been featured on CNN, Fox, CBS, and many other notable sites. Dov Baron is an international business speaker who was named by Inc. magazine as one of the top 100 leadership speakers to hire. Now, over to Dov Baron.
Welcome, dear friends, fans, and fellow aficionados of leadership excellence. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Leadership and Loyalty Tips for Executives. Let me ask you, what do you need to do to up-level your leadership? Well, if you're going to be a leader worth following, you must be integral. But how are you going to hold yourself accountable? How are you going to face your fears and truly build an honest culture? Well, stay tuned because that's where we're going to examine today. I'm your host, Dov Baron. I am the Dragonist, and I'm here to assist you tapping into the one thing in your business that changes everything by transforming meaning into action. To find out more, you can simply go to dovbaron.com. This episode of Leadership and Loyalty is brought to you in part by our other podcast, Curiosity Bites. Curiosity Bites is the answer to the question, how can we bring people together who completely disagree? This is exactly what your mind, your soul, and your heart have been craving. It's your chance to sit in on some real and oftentimes very intense conversations with some of the world's most interesting people. We're talking about people who are astronauts, neuroscientists, neurosurgeons, philosophers, holy people, quantum physicists, skeptics, entrepreneurs, Grammy award-winning entertainers, and even some folks you might completely disagree with who you'll find truly fascinating. Simply go to dovbaron.com and find out how you can sink your teeth into an episode of Curiosity Bites. As always, you can find us and find out more about us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you tune into podcasts. And as always, we appreciate you going there and subscribing and reviewing and sharing with your friends. If you're a regular listener, big thank you to you for making us the #1 podcast globally for Fortune 500 listeners. And we are honored and grateful to be cited by Inc.com as the #1 podcast to make you a better leader. All right, let's strip it down and dive right in. We've all been on the websites. Many of us have even been in the boardrooms where the company's central value has been stated as integrity. As words go, well, integrity is kind of one of the cool kids on the block these days. But what does it really mean when you apply it? Let's face it, it's easy to have integrity when things are going well. But what about when everything gets turned on its head? Let's go a step further and ask, what's your process for holding yourself, your teammates, and your entire organization integral? Well, stay tuned because that's exactly where we're going today with our guests. Our guest on this episode is Beth Weissenberger. Now, Beth is the co-founder and president of Handel Group. She's the head of the corporate and sports division. With nearly 20 years in the coaching industry, Beth has led personal development seminars for more than 50,000 people globally. Handel Group's trainings are delivered at Yale, Harvard, MIT, and Stanford Business School. Beth Weissenberger has been a featured executive coach at businessweek.com and is a regular contributor to the Huffington Post. Beth's ability to evolve corporate culture and bring about exponential financial growth has become her trademark. You can discover more about Beth at handelgroup.com. So, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and help me welcome the co-founder of the largest executive coaching firm in the world, Beth Weisenberger!
Wow. That was a great intro. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's good to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure. #1 podcast for leaders. Come on. What a joy.
Fabulous. Thanks. So there's a couple of places we'd like to start, and I'm going to start with something that I know you will be have some opinions about. What do you looking at, even beyond your opinion, just looking at it from a place of diagnosis, what do you see the state of leadership today? And I'm not just talking about political or corporate, I'm talking about collectively. What do you see as the state of leadership today?
A mess, if you just take the current culture in the election, right? And whatever side you're on, the truth be told, even though we don't know who the next president is, if you take a look at the word, we're divided, right? And, I hold the leader accountable for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have a world where it's divided. That's the leader's results. So that leader has a world that is that divided, that into racism, that into everything. We got a mess on our hands. And it starts at the top. It always starts at the top. That's your result. And that is the president's result. So we got a mess, regardless of who we put in to the next, as the next president, we got a mess.
Yeah, but there's an interesting thing about leadership, and that, because you and I are going to be talking about cultural leadership too. But leadership is something that creates the system, but the system creates the leader as well. And what I mean by that is that it's easy to look at this and see this is a one president problem, but it's not. It's a multi-generational deterioration that's been going on for many, many, many decades. And certainly it is, it has evolved into the volcano that it is today. But you're absolutely right. I think that we really need to re-examine leadership at a much greater level and really hold accountability to that. And that for me is one of the great fallings, is the ability to step away from accountability never ceases to amaze me.
Right. I have this great story I'll never forget. I went, Lauren Zander, who's my youngest sister, who's also the co-founder with me and the chairman of Handel Group, my boss. I went to her years ago. There was someone on my team who was not doing well. And I went to her, I'm like, oh my God, she sucks in front of the room. And my sister said, okay, you're failing. And I'm like, no, Lauren, you didn't hear me. She sucks in front of the room. She can't lead a workshop for the life of her. And Lauren goes, I understand. You're failing. And I'm like, Lauren, are you not listening to me? I'm not failing. I'm great in front of the room. She sucks. And Lauren goes, Beth, you're failing. And in that moment, it took her like 3 times to get me to get it. I went, oh, right. That's my result. Yes. If she's failing and I'm the president of that division, that's on me to turn her around, which I ended up doing in 6 weeks. But that was a wake-up call for me, that I was failing, not she was failing. Yeah.
And that is such a important lesson for all of us in the leadership position, that, when I go in and people say, well, we're having problems with engagement, or we're having problems with this. I'm like, yeah, the problem is leadership. It's always leadership. If you don't come to that, you're dead in the water. Yep. No, you don't understand. It's millennials. No, it's not. It's leadership. No, it's not. Right, well, millennials are entitled. No, they're not. Its problem is leadership. Exactly. So Beth, before we dive in, there's one of the questions I always like to ask my guests. We sort of live in this age of influencers, where people are influenced and people claim to be influencers. And some of them are, many of them are not. Who is someone that we might not know or might not even consider, who's been a major influence on you and on your leadership, somebody who's had major impact, even if we don't know them?
I would say for sure my sister, Lauren Zander. There isn't a question about that. Who I am today really comes from her coaching and her method. She's the one who invented the method that we teach at MIT for 14 years, that we're, at major companies, and she invented it. And she really has had the greatest influence on me in my life, as now the person who is sitting and running the company, someone who now has love in her life that I never did. I'm a better mother because of her. So I am who I am today, as my best self, because of my sister's coaching. Not a question.
What is it specifically? If you had to nail it down, what would it be?
In which part? What sucked about me, or what?
No. As in, what's been the major influence, the major impact, the major shift as a result?
The biggest one for me, and this is, it's more personal though, so it's not inside my leadership, because I was I'm a rock star in business and in coaching, and I can triple a person's company and go into a culture of 1,000, 5,000 people and do that. And we get hired to do that. But my love life, I've had 2 divorces, and then the third man cheated on me. And so I suck in that. And so I have 2 sisters, and they were both like, why are you such an idiot in love and a genius over here? And so the biggest impact was me really dealing with my love life. And at 50, I'm 61 now. At 59 was where I met the love of my life. And we've been together 2 years. And it's truly a miracle because I really sucked at that area.
And it's just one of the things about leadership that I find fascinating in the leaders that I deal with is this idea that you think you're good at something, therefore you're good at everything. And that's really not a smart move. I remember when I was in my mid 30s, and one of my really good friends I've been doing this for 37 years. And one of my good friends who said to me, he goes, you're one of the smartest, most enlightened people I've ever met. How come you're so dumb in relationships?
Exactly.
And I went, yeah, you're absolutely right. And that was when I was like, okay, I throw my hands up and I started to re-examine it all. And I've been in a happy marriage for almost 25 years. And, I'm the greatest gift of my life is my bride, right? She is the best thing I ever did was asking her to marry me. And the greatest gift is she said yes. But that was because I had to face, I suck. And even though as you said, even though I could be seen as a rock star in other areas, I sucked in that. And this is where I think leaders trap themselves. We start listening to our own press about everything rather than going, well, what's the truth? I kind of suck over here, but I'm good there. That's what we need to look at.
Yeah, it's in one of our modules where we get into epigenetics and lineage. One of the things is, so there's a trait that could be great. Like I'm a sergeant, right? So you can drop me into any company, no matter how big, and I can sergeant that thing with the people, triple the business, get people living from integrity. And then that worked. Except I was also a sergeant in my marriages. So who wants to be married to a sergeant, right? So how do you keep it here? Because you make a lot of money doing it here, but it's awful over here. So how do you keep it and then turn it off here? And that's one of the things that Handel teaches.
Yeah, and I think that that's a really key thing that everybody has to understand is that, part of my philosophy in the work that we do is I say, I want you to write down your greatest gift, your greatest character gift of who you are, and they'll write it down. And I go, now what I want you to write above that is, this is my curse. And they go, what do you mean? Your gift is your curse and your curse is your gift. Yeah. And they go, what do you mean? I wrote down, I'm very kind, and that's your curse. How does that happen? Well, you complain you get used all the time. Or I'm really good at getting shit done. Great. That's your curse. How? Because you're always bossing everybody around who doesn't want to be bossed around. Every gift is a curse. And I love that you bring that to people, because that is part of integrity, is owning that I always say heads and tails are the same coin, right? They look different, but they are the same coin. It's a gift and it's a curse.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about the book, just for a moment, just to give people a context, because the book that you guys have put out, I believe your sister wrote it. Maybe you both did.
No, I'll just correct. It says Lauren Zander and then my sister Marnie, who's the writer. They both wrote that book. Maybe it's you.
Cool. All right.
Maybe it's you.
Maybe it's you. And the subtitle is Cut the Crap, Face Your Fears, Love Your Life. So tell us a little bit, because I'm guessing that's the central, that's the sort of the core of the philosophy of the methodologies that you guys use. Tell us a little bit about the book and why people should read it.
Right. Yes, for sure. The book is awesome. I would suggest people rather, it's an easier, because you go into our online coaching module, Inner You. So if you're going to buy something, I buy Inner You, not the book, although go for the book, but it's all the same. It's the method. We have the method in the book, or the method in audio with working. But maybe it's you is one of our taglines, which is I'll never forget. I'll give you a great story. I called my sister one day, Lauren, and was complaining about, at the time, my husband. Oh my God, you're not going to believe what he did to me. And she let me go on for a few minutes, and I'm crying and all that. And at the end, she's like, Beth, I'm really sorry. You're sad about all this. But let me ask you a question. What did you do? And I'm like, I did nothing. What are you talking about? It's him. And she goes, no, Beth. What did you do before this happened? And I'm like, what? She goes, Beth, maybe it's you. And I'm like, oh, it's definitely not me. It's him. And by the time the conversation was over, I had to own my criminality in the mix of that argument that I had, right? Like, I always was that your shit smells, mine doesn't,
Right.
except that maybe it's you. It starts with you. Like, because you can't, like, it starts with you as a leader. Like, let's start with you. I know that you think your people are like this. Maybe they are, but let's start with that. You're the leader, and that if they're like that, then you trained them like that. So like, let's start with maybe it's you, because you are the one that you can do something about it. Like, you can fix yourself way easier than working on somebody else.
But it's way easier to look at fixing somebody else, which is what most people are most people are addicted to. It's like, well, I'll fix them, and then they get in relationships with people they can fix. That's the plan. Let me get in a relationship with somebody I can fix. That way, I don't have to look at me. Many years ago, when I was starting to study psychology, and I was saying to a friend of mine, I think I'm going to do a master's degree in psychology. He went, oh, please don't do that. And I said, why? He goes, those people are so messed up. I go, what do you mean? He goes, they don't deal with their own stuff. They go and study a master's degree in psychology, so they don't have to deal with their stuff. I go, Steve, that's a bit judgmental. Why would you say that? He goes, I have a master's degree in psychology.
Exactly.
He goes, I never did any therapy until I got away from psychology. And because it's always about fixing someone else and hoping that I can work out my stuff by fixing you. It doesn't work like that.
No.
And that's why you and I are so online.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I just got off the phone with a client who is upset about something that she saw and happened inside the company. And I'm like, I understand you're upset. Does anyone know you're upset? No. I'm like, what? You're grumbling in your head? Yes. And it's like, it's going to get her out of the door because she won't go deal with this thing. So maybe it's her. You got upset about what the company did, but does anyone know you're upset? Are you going to go, you could go invent the new division to go create the green, division of that. Like, why are you not taking this on and sitting around? Why? Because she's being a chicken, and it's way easier to point my finger outside that it's all your fault and leave it on you to go fix, versus that it has everything to do with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, one of the principles that you and I had talked about in our pre-chat was the principle of learn to human better. And you talked about that being a verb. Talk to us a little bit about that, because I think that's very valuable for people.
Yeah, it's one of our other taglines, and we do turn to human into a verb. And if you take a look in any one day, inside of COVID, inside of the world as it is today, you are there. If you're a partner in a relationship, if you're a parent, you've got that. If you're an employee or you're an executive, you've got all those people in those areas. And don't you want to be a great human in each of those areas? And so where Handel goes is to your cavities and your pollution, where you aren't humaning better, where you're being a jerk about something, where you're being a brat or being a chicken, or, from time to time, I can be a complete hard ass and a bitch. And that doesn't work for the love of my life. And so I never want to be anything but great for my love. I love him madly. Why would I want to be, same with you with your wife? Why would you want to not be a great man for your wife, right? And there's, from time to time, we all have what sucks about us, and we all have what's great. And so where we go inside of learning to human better is, we're not going to go strengthen your strengths. You don't need us for that. You're already humaning great over there. But we go into your cavities, your pollution, where you really do suck in that area and it impacts people. And you should want to go find out how that impacts people. and stop being like, oh no, I don't want to see that. No, I did a podcast this week with regards to you got to fall in love with your dark traits. Like you got to make them your best friends. My bitch is not going away. Welcome to my lineage. I'm a bitch. Now, am I like, oh yeah, I'm a bitch? No, I wish I wasn't. I wish I was like the sweetest, kindest thing. I'm just not that girl. But can I have my bitch on a leash? Can I have promises and consequences about it? Because I don't want to be that. That doesn't work for the people that work for me. It doesn't work for my daughter. It doesn't work for the love of my life. And so, yes, I have it. I can't hate it. I got to fall in love with, okay, I got a right arm, I got a left arm, and all right, I'm a bitch for sure. I can go red on people. Yes, I can. That's not great. But I know how it impacts people because I've asked and I've got the thing in a promise because I'm committed to being great. Why do I want to be great? Why wouldn't I want to be a great leader? I want my people to produce. They're producing the results that you want with you. So don't you want to be great for them?
And I fully agree with everything you're saying, but I'm going to push back because of this, that people, I think that most leaders would agree with everything you and I are saying here. That's different than doing anything about it. So, right, so they'll say, "Oh yeah, you're absolutely right, Beth. You're absolutely right, Dove. Yes, I agree. I've got to work on those things." But you know, I play to my strengths, and I'm not going to step into, into. I mean, most people won't. I do a lot of work that's based in Jungian shadow work. And people are like, I'm not going to that. I am not looking at. I'm like, listen. There's a quote from Joseph Campbell. It's one of my favorite quotes, and that is, "The treasure you seek can only be found in the cave you fear to enter."
Oh, I love that.
That's my favorite quote because what you're looking for can only be found in the darkness. Right? That's what we've got to. That's what we've all got to do.
But if you're living with integrity, which is where you started the program, and integrity is our definition, two definitions, is living true to your values. Are you really going to tell me your value as a husband or your value as a parent or your value as a leader is to mess people up? No, when you look at it, after you do your bad behavior, you're never proud of yourself. You're never happy. You're not like, I know the moment after I bitch someone, I'm gleeful because I got them. But that lasts for like a split second. That's part of the bitch, right? And then it's like, okay, no, that's not okay. So if you're living true to your values, not my values, your values, rock on. But if you're not, then you got to take a deep dive there. And if you don't want to, sure, then you're going to just stay being that condescending person for the rest of your life. And you're going to have people keep leaving the building and not want to work for you. And that's going to be your reputation. Okay, great.
Well, the truth of the matter is that you will never confront your ego, and your ego will be running the show. And everybody's, just in case you're considering that this is different, here's what I want you to understand. Everybody, me, you, the Dalai Lama, we all have egos. Egos, every human being has an ego. The only difference is it in the driver's seat? Is it in the passenger seat? Is it in the back seat? Or do you need to lock it in the trunk sometimes? And sometimes you need to lock it in the trunk. But you always have to understand it. And I love what you're saying about keeping the bitch on a leash. Is the bitch is incredibly useful and powerful and important. You need her because there are times when she'll need to come to the fore. She's just not very useful in a compassionate conversation with a beloved. She's not very useful in an empathetic conversation, but she is needed when there's something to fight for. And whether you call her the bitch or the warrior or whatever you decide to call her, all of those parts of us are simply valuable facets to bring forward.
Or you learn to, which is what I've learned to, the art of being able to hit somebody upside the head with a brick with my heart, so that you walk away not mumbling and rolling your eyes that I'm a bitch, because then that's 5 steps further away from you being held to account, which is what I'm doing. But if I do it with my heart, you will deal with yourself, which is where I want to leave you. So how do you be empathetic? How do you hold someone to account with kindness? And that's really what I've had to learn and master, which is part of what I took on, because I don't want to leave you bloody on the floor and I'm now right and you're now wrong and go deal with yourself, because it'll take you way more time, because you're also then dealing with my bad personality that just messed you up. Even though I might be right, it doesn't matter.
No.
I just sent you 5 steps backward. And it does. Dove, what you're saying is accurate. It takes courage to go own your dark side. There's not a question about it. And there really are some human beings who will never.
Yeah, and I think that that's a very important point, Beth, is that, you and I and many others may go, oh, but if only this person would do that. Yeah, that doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. What's that got to do with you? Nothing. The bottom line is you only get to control one person, that's you. And as much as you might I would like the whole world to live with that level of integrity and that level of self-inquiry to self-examine. Yes, I would love that. But that would then make me the dictator of the world, and it wouldn't make the world a better place. Everybody has to come to that themselves. And the only way to come to that, as far as I'm concerned, is by being willing to look at the consequences of your own behavior. What are the consequences? If you're telling me that you can't keep a team member for more than 10 minutes, that's on you. That's a consequence of your behavior, and you will need to deal with that. And you go, well, no, it's because we don't pay enough. No, it's not. People stay in shitty paying jobs all the time because they love the person they're working for. Yes. And I know that you talk about the interior board, the board that's going on inside of our own coconut, the negative voices that need to be fired, that end up running a lot of that stuff and keep us stuck. Talk to us about those, because I love the categories of how you guys have framed them in a way for everybody to grasp that.
No, for sure. So there was a study by Dr. David Hawkins years ago where he studied people's inner dialogue. And what he discovered is that, so everybody listen to the statistic, 80% of a human being's inner dialogue, your thoughts, are negative. 80% in your subconscious are negative, and 95% of the 80% that's negative is the same shit you thought the day before. So it's not like even any new things. And so if 80% is negative of your inner dialogue, that gives you your actions and gives you your results. So any area of your life where your results are not what you want, like you're not happy, you're not proud, you're not effective about your health or your body or your leadership or whatever it is, I promise you one of these 3 are running your life. And so the 3 are, so the 80%, we named them, and I'll say them and then I'll explain them. So you've got a chicken voice, you've got a brat voice, and you've got a weather reporter voice. The chicken voice, and this is the 80% that's negative. The chicken voice is the avoider, the avoider of having it's their performance review and you got to tell them they suck about these 3 things and you never like doing that. And it's so hard and you don't want to hurt their feelings. And so maybe you can do a workaround. So a chicken is the avoider of hard things, confronting things, scared. So chicken. And to you, you won't be a chicken. To you, you'll think it's a great business strategy. So maybe your thought will go like this. I should go talk to Dove today. Dove is never really good on Thursdays when he's doing his podcast. He'll get upset. He likes information like on Monday. So I'm going to wait till Monday to have this conversation and tell him this thing that's not going to be good news. And that person will think that's the greatest business strategy, but I'll call you a chicken. So that's a chicken. Sure. The brat is the defiant one. So for those of you who have teenagers, it's like a teenager. So I have a 19-year-old daughter. It goes like this. I don't want to, you can't make me, you're not the boss of me, leave me alone, drop dead, go die, fuck off. It's one of those. That's the brat. So the brat goes like this. You wake up in the morning and you had decided the night before you're going running. And you wake up and you're like, nah, I'm too tired. I'm too stressed. I don't need to run tomorrow. And you'll think God just spoke to you and put you back to bed. No, that would be the brat running your life. It's the defiant one. The weather reporter is the subtlest of the 3, just as deadly though. So I'm sitting in New York City and it's sunny and it's 62 degrees. And all I can do is dress accordingly. So when you're weather reporting in your life, you swear that your reason for not doing something is as real as Sunny and 62. So you might tell me, Beth, I don't have time to exercise. The kids are home from school. There's, it's COVID. I don't have time to exercise. And you live like I have no time is as real as it's sunny and 62 degrees. And I'll tell you, you're full of shit. So your weather reporter is the excuses, the justifier, the one that gets off the hook from being accountable. So you got your chicken, your brat, and your weather reporter. And once you identify who's running the show, you then can do something about it. So I have this NFL player that I'm allowed to speak about, Justin Pugh, Arizona Cardinal. When I was coaching him, he was a rookie on the Giants, and he will tell you I made a huge difference in his life and saved him, and because he was scared they were getting cut and etc. And he's now with the Cardinals, and he sent me a text in January that said, Beth, I thought of you today. I had to speak at the state Senate of Arizona. And he sent me the clip, and then he wrote, my chicken told me not to do it, but I told him to fuck off. But unless he recognized his chicken, when I first started with him, he didn't recognize his chicken. He listened to that chicken like it was God speaking to him.
Yep.
Those are your 3 board members. They should all be fired. They are not you. They are not on your team. And in fact, their entire life is about messing your life.
Right. So I want to go into the confronting of those and dealing with them. And I want to also go a little bit deeper with that for the audience and have you, as you listen to that, you might be thinking, okay, those 3, I can recognize those 3 voices. I can recognize the categories to put them in, and I want to know how to deal with them, which is where we're going to go. But I want you to know why they're there. And you may not have considered that, because like Beth just said, they're going to mess with your life. So why would any part of you want to mess with your life? The answer is very simple. You want to survive. So each one of those voices is driven by your desire to survive, not to thrive, not to do well, not to be amazing, but to survive. So your quote chicken arrived very early on in your life, and it said something frightened you, and you took that on and you went, okay, I survived that situation by being a chicken. So that methodology works. And it may have when you were 4, it may not when you're 44. And then if it was your brat and you went, well, I'm proud of that brat made me stand up for this or that. Yes, it may have worked wonderfully when you were 12. It may be useless now you're 40. Or you go, yeah, but it's the weather reporter in me is very useful for X or Y. Yes, it was. All of those things helped you to survive, but they don't help you to thrive, and they'll never make you into a great leader. So we need to learn how to, first of all, recognize that they're not bad. They are whatever they are because they helped you survive. That's number 1. So stop making them bad. Just recognize what they are. And now we're going to look at how do you deal with them. And that's what we're going to talk about here next with Beth.
All right, how do you deal with them? So obviously the first thing is you got to be willing to admit it. So for those of you listening, take a moment and go, all right, where am I a chicken? Oh, I am definitely a chicken with that one at work. Okay, where are you a brat? Oh, I'm definitely a brat with my meditating. I keep saying I should meditate and I keep not meditating. Okay, where are you a weather reporter? Oh my God, where am I not a weather reporter? I have excuses about everything. So you then begin to see it. None of this makes you a bad person. So you want to head here. It's fun to go find your dark side. Have it be fun. Oh my God, I'm a chicken here. Oh my God, I'm a brat here. Because the moment you see it, we can do something about it. And I'm going to get you right out of hell. This is so simple. It's crazy. You need 3 things. So at any moment that you don't want to be a chicken brat or weather reporter in that area of your life, and you want to actually get life back into your hands, we call that being an author. So where you're not, how you know you're an author is in that area, you're happy, proud, and effective. So you could be you are happy, proud, and effective about your exercise. You stayed exercising during COVID and the pandemic, and your body looks actually even better. You authored that. So any place you're not an author, who's running the show? The chicken brat weather reporter. You need 3 things to nail the chicken brat weather reporter. I'll say them and explain them. You need a specific, measurable promise. You need a consequence, the most important part. And you need someone to hold you to account other than you. And let me start with that one. I do not have my love of my life hold me to account. Why? Because the man loves me madly. And if I go, honey, I broke a promise, do I have to pay the consequence? He'll go, honey, whatever you want. Right. So I don't use him. I use my sisters, because when I break a promise, they're like, pay the consequence. And if I go, I don't want to, they're like, yeah, fuck off, pay it. Right. Like, so you need someone who will not let you get away with your shit. So a lot of times that's not your friends, because your friends are, let me get away with mine, I'll let you get away with yours. So you got to pick that.
Yep.
All right. Specific measurable promise is easy. It's not, I'll go to the gym 3 times a week, because you'll go, you'll have a green juice, you'll wave to the people in the spin class, and you'll think that was it. You will find a loophole. The brat finds loopholes. They are not on your team. So it needs to be a specific measurable promise. Clear. All right. So now you have that. You have the person who's going to hold you to account. The most important part is we got to manipulate the chicken, brat, and weather reporter, because they're not going to die easily.
Mm-hmm.
So how we manipulate them is through a consequence. Mm-hmm. You have to pick something that would so annoy the shit out of you that it makes you, because there's over your dead body, will you pay it? So it forces you to keep the promise. I'll give you one. In fact, so one of my clients had to go speak to her boss, and she definitely did not want to tell him this. And she was being a complete chicken. And we wrote out exactly what she had to say, the 3 bullet points, because, you know, her brat was going to, and her chicken were going to find a loophole. So she knew she had to do those 3 things. And if she did not, she was going to have to pay $1,000 to one of the presidents that's running.
Mm-hmm.
So over her dead body, was she going to pay $1,000? So I got the text after the phone call going, I did all 3 things. Of course she did, because that consequence that I would make her pay was big enough. So you got to pick something that would so annoy the shit out of you. The best ones are your vices. Like if you like your glass of wine at the end of the night, you don't get it. You know, mine is my brat discussed not meditating for 3 months with me. You know, I would hear my higher self go, you should meditate. We did this great program, Ziva meditation, Emily Fletcher. I loved it. And then I stopped doing it. And so for 3 months, my voice went, Beth, meditate. And I'm like, yeah, fuck off. I don't want to. And after about 3 months, I finally heard it. And I'm like, oh my God, I am so sick of myself. How am I going to tell clients that I keep doing this? So I promised to meditate. And the consequence I came up with, I have to meditate 5 days a week, or I don't get my coffee. I have to earn my 1 cup of coffee in the morning. I have now meditated for 7 months, 5 days a week, and I've never blown my coffee, because over my dead body, am I not getting that coffee? So you hear the manipulation, but it works, because what I'm committed to is not the consequence. Don't have to pay the consequence. What I'm committed to is my value, called take care of my self-care, called meditate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We teach a thing called agreements and consequences. And it's interesting that you brought up the example you did, because back in the George W. period, I had a client and I said, you know, you need to create an agreement with yourself around this. And you need us, because he was dealing with team members poorly. His behavior was just, he would fall into a poor behavior. And I said, you need to create an agreement and consequence with this. And he's like, yeah, but, you know, but I forget. And I go, okay, so here's the deal. I said, I want you to donate in your name. You cannot do it anonymously. In your name, $500 to George W. Bush's campaign. And he was a very strong Democrat. And he goes, I can't do that. And I go, yeah, you can if you do this behavior. And and guess what? He did not donate. So you're absolutely right. And I mean, this is the thing. We've got to hold ourselves consequential. We teach this in our relationship programs. My wife and I have agreements and consequences with each other.
Exactly.
And so people say, well, give me an example. I'll give you the best example, because we've been together almost 25 years ago. Here's a simple one. Divorce is always an option. And they go, what do you mean? I never thought that about you two. Oh, divorce is always an option. So they go, what do you mean? So it's very simple. My wife is free to sleep with anybody she wants. I'm free to sleep with anybody I want. But the consequence is the end of the relationship. It's very simple. So I'm not controlling her. She's not controlling me. My agreement with myself is understanding the consequence that I would lose the love of my life. That's my consequence to me. It's her consequence to her. It's not me holding her accountable.
Yes.
And so this is the thing that we forget. You see, and this is why I say to people, it's not punishment, because punishment is what somebody else does to you.
Yes.
A consequence is what you do to yourself if you're a grown-up. So we create these consequences that we need to do. But I love the piece that you put in there, because again, I think it's a very important piece, is you have got to find somebody who will hold you accountable, not somebody, and that person cannot be your best friend, your mother, your sister, your brother, who is going to let you off. It has to be somebody who will hold your feet to the freaking fire.
Exactly.
And if they won't, then that's not an accountability partner. That is an excuse partner. That's a partner for your excuses. Oh, yeah, but it's been rough for you. It's been difficult with COVID. I understand.
Yeah, no. Yeah, you need someone who's going to hold your feet to the fire. I love that.
And that's where it needs that. I'm going to use the term. That's where it needs that bitch part of you to say, you know what? I love you, and you're going to see me as being a bitch for this, but I'm going to hold you accountable.
Hell yeah.
My clients will say to me, Dove, you are Sergeant Major Compassion. That's the terms I've been called that.
I love that.
Because I will be incredibly, deeply loving, empathetic, and compassionate. I am a yin male, but I will hold you fiercely accountable, and I'll be the Sergeant Major about that. And
exactly.
Because I love you.
Exactly.
And this is what leadership is for all of us. And I love that you're bringing this to leaders in such a powerful, powerful way. It's important.
Yes. And you really can. I want everyone here. So you can take what we first start with when we're coaching is the simple stuff. Like, are you exercising, your self-care, taking care of you, right? Then we get into your traits that suck, right? Like that impact people in a way that you really don't want them to impact them, and that you don't even know impacts them that way because you've never even asked them. So we have leaders go interview not only their wife or their partner or their children about what sucks about them, but the second question is way more important. So when I asked my daughter when she was 9 years old, she's 19 now, when she was 9 years old, I said, we were getting divorced. Armin had moved out. He and I are dear friends. And I said, Maxie, is mommy fun? And she's like, Mommy, you are not fun. 9 years old. But then I asked her, the real question is, Maxie, how does that make you feel that mommy's not fun? And she burst out crying. And she said, like, you never want to play with me. That broke my heart. And in that moment, I then made the promise and consequence with her to be fun. And that was the end of it. And I became fun. You can ask her, right? So it really is. It's also about your behavior. So the easy stuff about exercise or what you're eating or losing the weight, that's the easier stuff. Then we get into your personality and what isn't working as a leader, what isn't working as a spouse. And that's where we go, all right, that condescending thing you do that you now have heard how it impacts people. Now we're going to change that behavior. How? With a promise and a consequence and someone to hold you to account. And then not only that, we're going to replace it. What trait do you want to replace it with? And then how do you bring a new trait in, a new behavior, a promise, a consequence, and someone to hold you to account? This is not hard. Mm-hmm. It just needs courage to be able to go play in this.
So let's address that part, Beth, because that's a very important piece. So the courage, because we talked about that earlier, again, you might recognize those things, but a lot of people will say, oh, but that's just who I am. And we know that that's a chicken talking, right? That's just who I am.
Or the brat.
Yeah. It's
to
not
get away with it.
It's not who you are.
Right. Just deal with it. Too bad.
Right. But at the same time, you and I can have compassion for this person is terrified of confronting that they do not have that courage. I know how I get people to have that courage. How would you get them to have that courage when they don't feel like they have it? They don't feel like they can actually even go there.
The issue is, so for instance, so if a company hires me and then they place you in coaching because they want you in coaching, not that you voted to be in coaching. In fact, you would have voted no. First of all, everyone knows who hires us that if we can't get the person to want to be in the coaching, we're out. We're not going to coach that person because that's not fair to the person. Like if they're not going to play, then it's going to be frustrating the coach. It's going to be worse for you. And then, the only way you'll go is throw us under the bus because that's the only way to get out of it. Right. So people know that we're not going to coach you unless you're going to be open and do the work. Right. But it's our job. If someone starts off with like, oh God, they want me to do coaching. It's my job to make it safe and make it fun and make it respectful to go on the dark side. So how I always do it is I just tell you the asshole that I am. And I am, and I've got many things I got so many stories about what a jerk I am, and what it took for me to go on the ride. That's how I make it safe for people. And then they're either going to or not. And I can always tell after 2 sessions. So can my coaches, like, if you're not game, you're not in trouble. God bless, you go on your own. I'll let the client know. And then the client, you're not in trouble with them. And I always set that up in the beginning of the contract. Like people don't get to be in trouble if they're not in coaching. It points to something, but they're not in trouble. And so you have to make it safe for people to want to come and take a look on the dark side. So we make it fun and respectful. And all of our coaches who've been trained for at least 2 years know how to make it safe for people to come play.
Yeah. Again, I said, I know how we do it. And part of what we do is exactly that, which is vulnerability.
Yeah.
If you can't lead without vulnerability, because then you appear to be perfect and the other person is always trying to meet your perfection, and perfect is really quite boring and very unattractive.
Well, it's a lie. No one is.
It's a
so
lie.
You already know they're lying.
Right. But the stepping up with the vulnerability, talking about where you came from and how you have grown or changed and how you're still growing. Because I think that's an important piece. A lot of times leaders will say, yes, I was vulnerable. I shared that when I was 20, I was doing this. I'm like, yeah, that's great. It's good. It's valuable. However, where's the vulnerability now? And they go, what do you mean? Well, I happen to know that you're struggling in your marriage. Does anybody know that at work? No. You want me to tell them that? Yeah, I do. You don't have to tell them the gory details, but you do have to let them know that everybody is in a process. Yes. And that your challenge today might be with your kid who is a drug addict, or it might be with this mental illness that you're dealing with in the family or something else, but it has to be contemporary, not just histrionic. Yeah. I want to ask you in that context, what was one thing that you did for a long time that actually blocked you from your success? Because you've become very successful. Your organization is enormously successful, but it's a journey. So what did you do for a long time that got in the way of that?
I think the thing that, my lesson in life is my heart and love, and not being a bitch and being I'll say another bad word, I can be a cold fuck, right? I'm not anymore. That one is like so far gone on a leash and I'm so the other way, but cold and a bitch, right? And I led an organization into success still, right? But it was more fear-based than love-based, and deeply caring about my people, like deeply care. Why? Let me just get the best results out of you. So I sucked as a leader, although I also led the company into the largest executive life coaching with my sister, because all the while, my sister would punch like that, like this was not like, I wouldn't get a note every day. Like that was my joke. Like at least every week my sister pointed out what an asshole I was and I had to go deal with it, right? Publicly, to my clients, to the people at work. There wasn't a week that I wasn't crying about what other asshole I was. Like I was in the thick of it with everybody, right? So that journey was, am I learning not to be defensive when my sister would give me the next note? We played a game, so I had a consequence. So she would go, Beth, I'm pushing the red button on you being defensive, which was my warning. I got one warning. And if I shut my mouth at that moment and started to take accountability, great. If I didn't, she got to pick the color I would have to paint my nails for the week that was going to be awful. So you can even come up with some fun consequences in the whole thing, right? Not just horror, like the ones that also, but like, oh my God. And I never had to have my, nails painted green or whatever color wasn't going to work on me. Right. So, and she couldn't wait to like pick the sparkle. Right. But I never did it. And I got one warning. And that's like knowing myself that I need a warning, like, cause I can be really that jerk. So I always ask her, could I get one warning?
Right. So talk to us about the truth about lying.
Oh, that's in module 7. So for those of you, we have our entire coaching program on audio now, and you get to do the whole workbook. And so module 7 is the 7 ways a human being lies. Now, I don't remember them by heart, so I'm not going to go look it up or like that, but it's my favorite one that I send people into. In fact, I just got off with someone from Vayner that's their next module is lying. And we were laughing. I'm like, you're going to go see how much you lie. And I'll never forget one of our greatest Thanksgivings in my family. This is when we were young adults. We didn't have any of our boyfriends or girlfriends with us, my parents. And the conversation for the dinner was we each had to confess one lie that we never told each other. It was awesome. My mother confessed that when she was engaged to my dad, she kissed her beautician. She made out with her beautician. My brother confessed, my youngest sister, Lauren, got in huge punishment trouble because they thought she was the one that broke the stained glass door. And it was my brother the entire time. And he finally confessed that one. Mine's a little sexy. Mine was, I used to leave the house at midnight at 15 years old. And my boyfriend, after everyone was sleeping, through the back door, and my boyfriend would pick me up and I'd go hang out with him all night till 5:30 in the morning. Still a virgin. I was 15 and would come home before my dad got up at like 5:30. Never got caught. And I told them that. They're like, you were leaving the house every night. So it's so much fun to finally be free from lying, right? We lie every day. How you feeling?
Absolutely.
Oh, I'm great. No,
Yep.
You're not, right? Like we lie in the silliest things. Like how many of you have stolen money from your father's wallet? Come on. So the amount of lies, I just went through one of the lies where someone claimed that the artwork, she did it, right? She didn't do that artwork. Like we tell lies. In fact, the statistic is in every 10-minute conversation, you've lied at least once.
Mm-hmm. And again, social lying, it's one thing to lie, but it's to recognize that we are socially conditioned to lie. Again, part of that mechanism of protection. So how are you today? I'm fine. And my clients know they cannot say those words to me, fine, because I say, you remember what that means? Yep. And they go, oh yeah, I'm not fine, because fine stands for FINE. Effed up, insecure, controlling, and emotional.
I love it.
Right.
Love
So,
it.
right. So we are socially conditioned to tell these lies, but your best relationships are the ones that will come out of the truth. And the truth I always say the truth will set you free, but it'll sting first.
It'll piss you off first. Exactly.
Yeah, it's going to piss you off way before it ever sets you free.
Yeah.
But the only way to be free is you have to deal with that. Now, we're coming close towards the end of the show here, Beth, and we've talked about your career. We've talked about the things you've done. One of the things that I believe, and I think you've kind of mentioned it, but maybe there's something else. We talk about dragon leadership and about how dragons are forged in fire. And what I mean by that is that if you take iron and you put it in fire, you can make steel, which is far stronger. And some people are burned up in the fire. They choose to be burned away by it. Other people are refined by it. They're made stronger, more powerful by it. But these are the moments, the events that challenge us beyond anything we've ever thought about. What do you see as that moment that was or not necessarily moment, but those series of events that have forged you to become a refined, stronger, more powerful, but not necessarily aggressively, but made you a better person? What would that be?
I think when the third man, so I divorced twice, and then the third man I lived with my teen daughter, cheated on me. That So for the first 2 weeks, I was the victim, the martyr. Oh my God, I got cheated on. How do I get cheated on? Like, do you not know who I am? One of those, right? Like, oh my God. And after 2 weeks, Lauren called me and said, okay, Beth, I'm sick of this. Do the Handel method on yourself. This is your result. Could you go be accountable for that? Your man cheated on you. And I'm like, oh yeah, I should probably go do that. Within 30 minutes, I went and took a walk. And within 30 minutes, I'm like, oh shit. And I could immediately see that given who I was in that relationship, he was not my dream. I was selling out. That was not my guy. I knew damn straight it wasn't. But he was saving my ass, with the money and the house and the whole thing. And so I was selling out. So no wonder he cheated on me. I cheat on me too. You weren't my dream. I'm not in love with you like that. And so I then went and had the conversation with him, forgave him, said, this is not on you. I mean, you have to go deal with your sex addict and that's on you. But this is on me that you weren't my dream. I apologize. I own it. And we ended up as friends and he took care. It was beautiful. Right. But in that moment, I really oh my God, what am I up to here? What am I doing? This is like, you really went this far and lied this much. And in a sense, I deserve that smack. That was the right smack from the universe called like, hello, bam. And it just shifted everything for me.
But that is the point. I think that's such an important and vital point, is that moment of self-accountability, that moment of stepping away from I'm a victim of to I'm responsible for, that most people don't want to own. It's very, I get it. It's challenging to own, but everything is transformed in that moment. And, as somebody who fell 120 feet while free climbing and got smashed to pieces, I still don't believe in accidents. That was my result of my doing. And people could say, well, yeah, but you were free climbing and there was no ropes.
No, I wouldn't say that. I'd want to hear how you thought it was you.
But that's true. I was free climbing. I fell with ropes. I chose to go climbing without ropes, and I knew the risk, and I was an adrenaline junkie. So until I own that, nothing changes. And that's what I owned. Yeah. I fell in June of 1990, and in November of 1990, I fell 100. I bungee jumped 140 feet. I fell 120, bungee jumped 140. And it wasn't until after I'd done that I realized, oh, I know what I'm doing. I get it now, right? And people go, well, I guess that was a big enough consequence. No, it wasn't. Why? Because that was my fourth fall.
Yeah.
It wasn't my first, it was my fourth. And I always say to people all the time, your fall might be a divorce, it might be a bankruptcy, it might be somebody cheating on you, it might be an illness, might be somebody you love leaving, passing. There's all kinds of ways, but they're all your falls. They're all the fire that will burn you up. It will either refine or define you. And for me, I choose to be refined, not defined.
And in fact, you could say in our language that because you owned it, it wasn't a haunting on you. So there are things in your life that still haunt you. And the reason why they still haunt you, out of the million experiences, only these 8 haunt you. It's because you learned the wrong lesson. You see, if I would have walked away from that man cheating on me, and I would have just went, ooh, I picked the wrong guy. Okay, he's a cheater, and left it like it was him and not me, that I would have learned the wrong lesson, and I'd be 61 now and not in love. Right? So anything that haunts you, you'll learn the wrong lesson. That's why it's still globbed on you. And so, Dov, you're speaking about you learned the right lesson after 4, not after the first 3, but after 4, you got the right lesson. And that's why it came off you.
Exactly.
So those of you who are haunted by things, you got the wrong lesson.
So with that, Beth, we're going to very close to the end here. And I really am grateful for you sharing your time with us. There are a couple of things. Number one, I would love for you to share with us a real practical thing that some leaders can go away and do, preferably right away, but certainly within 24 hours. And second of all, of course, I want you to make sure that everybody knows how they can reach out to you, how they can find out about your organization and all the wonderful resources that you have.
Beautiful.
So let's start with that practicality.
The first thing was
The practicality.
what you can
what is
do
it
in
something
24
they
hours.
can
Okay,
do
here.
within
The
24
best
hours?
thing to do, if you are going to go do something like really take it on, since it's the end of 2020 and 2021's coming in, is go find out. So go pick 3 people to interview as a leader. 3 of your direct reports, 3 of your peers. Pick 3 people to go interview, and not the ones that all love you, and ask these 2 questions. I want to be a better leader in 2021. I know there's things about me that don't necessarily work for you. So I want you to tell me what sucks about me. What are 3 things you want me to take on in 2021? 1 to 3 things. Then have the person say it. But after they say it, so if they say, okay, I want you to, let me finish the whole sentence before you say no. And then say, okay, how does that impact you? Sorry for the buzzer. How does that impact you when I do that? How does that impact you when I do that? Get those 2 questions answered. So now you've got a list of a few things people say. And then what you do is make a promise, a consequence, and someone to hold you account. You do those, life will shift on a dime. So that's number 1. Number 2, if you go to Handel Group, Handel, it's our maiden name, handelgroup.com. There's newsletters you can get for free. There's blogs. Go on our website. You'll see me there. I'm Beth at handelgroup.com. It'll give you my email there. And then we've got this incredible audio program called Inner You. We have Inner You Life, Inner You Love, Inner You Student. The one we're giving away to you guys is Inner You Career. It's $650, but we're giving it to you for $325. You get half off. All you have to do is put the coupon Leadership and Loyalty, capital letters, Leadership and Loyalty, one word. Okay. And you will put that into our website. You'll see Inner You Career $650. You'll get it for $325. It's
Beautiful.
yours. It's a lifetime subscription. You get 1 private coaching call, and you get access to Inner University for 6 weeks.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Beth. That's wonderful. And we will, of course, post all of those links in the show notes. It's been a pleasure and honor having you here. Thank you so much for all that you've shared. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your generosity and sharing it all.
Yeah,
and for you, dear listener, remember that you can hang out with other conscious leaders, and you can chat about this episode or any past episodes inside of our Facebook and LinkedIn groups. Simply look for the Leadership and Loyalty podcast in there. Truth of the matter is, it doesn't matter how successful you are. If your employees and your customers don't understand what gives your company meaning, you're only working at a fraction of your capability. To find out how you can hire me, Dov Baron, as a speaker or leadership strategist or executive advisor for yourself or your organization, simply go to dovbaron.com. That's DOVBARON.com. Because unified meaning, or as we call it, finding your dragon fire, is the one single monolithic difference between mediocrity and greatness for all individuals and companies. I want to thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. Till next time, stay curious, my friend. Stay curious about how you might be the problem, about how you can be more accountable and more integral to be a better leader. I'm Dov Baron. I'm here to assist you, tapping into your dragon fire to reach that next level of clarity, focus, purpose, and profit in your business, your life, and your leadership impact. And I am out.